If you have the possibility, it's always nice to see your faces, girls, in this case. Thank you very much. Some cameras has to be opened. Well, as you know, my name is Xavier Ola. I'm the head of Careers and Alumni and Entrepreneurship Center. Here is also Giorgio Niro. It's our Global Careers Coordinator. And we are very happy to have Osmund Ko here. It's one of our collaborators. He's also been working in GBSB Global as a trainer and coach. And so we've been working together and we know quite well about each other. So we are happy in having him again explaining this interesting topic. This is time management. This is one of the webinars that we organize in Careers and Alumni Center. Remember that here in Careers and Alumni Center, we have a lot of resources for your effective and efficient professional career planning. We have counseling sessions, we have coaching sessions, we have workshops, we have webinars, and we have a job careers portal, plenty of resources, and the possibility to apply for jobs, interns, and much more possibilities. Okay, so the idea is being connected with us, being connected with what we offer from careers from career services. Okay. So today it's a webinar with a very relevant and interesting topic, as I said, is about how we manage our time. It's about strategies for productivity and success. I'm eager to listen, Osman, because honestly, Osman, I could not have lunch today, and that reveals perfectly that I'm not very well managing my agenda. Okay. So I'm eager to learn from you and from your all your tips and strategies that you are gonna share with us. Okay, Osmond, it's a researcher, it's a trainer, it's an entrepreneur. He has done a lot of, you will see he's very keen in communication. He has been doing a lot of training in terms of communication skills, but now it has his own academy that covers from customer services to leadership skills and all the topics that could be relevant for professional and personal growth. Okay. So, Osman, thank you very much for having you here, and the floor is yours. Very happy to listen to you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Javier, for that warm introduction. Thank you also so much, first and foremost, for having me. I feel very honored for being chosen to conduct this time management workshop, or shall we say webinar for GBSB. So I'd like to thank you, uh, everybody in Careers and Alumni Center for GBSB, for welcoming me in. Okay, so I guess at this point, I'd also like to say that I'm really excited to talk about this topic, time management, because it's something that I feel that everybody generally struggles with, especially as the modern age has become more rapid. No, the demands for us to achieve more and more things in shorter amounts of time is really increasing, and the pressure to compete with other people, with deadlines, and with our own set goals and agendas is also increasing. And that's why I think it's a relevant topic. And I myself, who juggle a lot of hats, no, I play a lot of roles on a daily basis, also struggle with time management myself. So Xavier, if you have the same struggle as I do, then we are all normal. We are all going through this life that for some reason has suddenly, become so rapid for us to catch up. So I totally understand where you're coming from, and I'm sure we all go through the same thing. Okay, I'd like to get to know a little bit of the people who are in the room, and I'd like to start with Izumi, if you don't mind, only because Izumi, I think out of everyone here, you are someone who manages her time very well because you were the first person to enter the room. You were not late, you were really on time. And of course, you've got your camera on. So, Izumi, kindly just let me know a little bit about yourself. Are you a student in GBSB, and what are you taking, and why did you choose to sign up for this training?
Just to say, Izumi's in the library. Look how amazingly she's managing her time. And maybe she won't be able to talk, but maybe Zumi, if you want to type, and I'll transfer everything you write down in the chat just to assist you. I know in the library we're not supposed to talk and make noise. She texted me at the very beginning that she's in the library, okay? And
Wow.
this is not the first time, actually, Zumi, she was able to join many of our career development events while she was in the library at the same time. So Izumi, do you want to, can you talk? I don't know, did you move or do you want to type? What do you prefer?
Thank you so much for that heads up, Georgia. But
Yeah,
again, it
yeah,
also
yeah.
goes to show how well managed she is with her time, knowing that she can't talk, that she's in the library. She set it up there earlier. So, it's fine. Go ahead and chat if you'd like to interact with us, because I'd like to keep this as interactive as possible.
All right.
On the flip side, sorry, Georgia, go ahead. Maybe you could
Yeah,
share
I
what
was
is.
going to say, because she just typed, Izumi,
Mhm.
she is, yes, indeed, in the library still. She is doing a master's degree in management, and she's
Okay.
in the second term now, and she started the master the past January. So
Hmm.
she's expected to graduate in December 2024. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Okay, so good luck to you, Izumi. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit of your background. May I also call Ada Adayobi? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Is it Adaobi?
Yes,
Oh, perfect. Okay, got it the first try. Adaobi. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself.
yes. Okay, my name is Adalbi. I'm a student of GBSB first year. Study business administration, and I'm a founder of a startup business back in my home country. So, and I really got interested in this topic because it's something I struggle with. I struggle with time management a lot, especially as someone who works from home most of the time. It's really, really difficult to keep track of what I do, and most times I realize that I end up doing things that I'm not supposed to do and wasting my time. So it's really something I battle with, and hopefully I get some tips, some actionable tips that I can be able to implement and get results to be a better time manager.
I love it. Thank you so much, Adalbi, for sharing that. And it's really interesting in your case because you're not only juggling schoolwork, you're also juggling your personal business back home. And that's
Yeah.
two very, I would say, distinct things, no, in terms of schedulings, in terms of deadlines, in terms of pressure. And it's really how
Yeah.
you manage both of those things. And sometimes they could even
Mhm.
overlap. Completely understand where
Yes.
you're coming from, Adobe. Thanks for sharing that as well. One more question.
You're
I
welcome.
was also told, and this is not just for Adobe, but to anyone in the room, I was also told that there are people in Georgia, please correct me if I'm wrong, there are people who will be joining this training who are already graduates of GBSB. Are they in the room right now?
Yeah, they are. We have one here with us, is Isabella, but I'm not sure if Isabella, can you talk? She's an alumni, she's working at the moment, maybe. I don't know.
Yes,
Isabella?
I can talk.
Hi,
Can you hear
Isabella.
me? Hello.
Yes, maybe you could share a little bit. So you're not studying anymore right now, am I correct?
No, I'm actually working.
So is it
I
100% working? You're not juggling work with studies?
Well, right now I just finished the workshop of project management, so I'm just compagining studying for the exam while working, and I also write, so I also have to train, and I'm also studying German, so I'm balancing all of it together.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay, so you've got a lot of things on your plate. Very interesting. Thank you also, Isabella, for sharing those things with us. Okay, to talk about time management. And by the way, guys, there's only very few people in this room. Feel free to turn on your cameras. It's a little bit more intimate, this workshop. Also, if you'd like to have any questions, feel free to interrupt at any point, simply because there's only few of us, and I'd really like to help you guys along. Allow me to share my screen now. Georgia, kindly let me know if it can be seen by everyone, if it's okay.
Looks good. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Georgia. Okay, I'd like to encourage everyone to sort of grab any sheet of paper or any notebook or any empty page that they have in front of them, with a pen. It could be a pencil, it could be a marker, anything, and write the numbers 1 to 12. I think at this point, I just want for us to sort of look inwards and try to assess ourselves with a very quick self-assessment. So any sheet of paper, any notebook that you have there, whatever blank empty space that you have, we don't need a big space, just a small space, with a pen or a pencil, and write number 1 to 12. On screen, I hope everyone can see my screen, I'll be flashing some statements. And if you agree with the statement that I flash, please write the letter A for agree. That means that this statement sort of resonates with you or describes you or your habits in a certain way. Write letter A. If it doesn't, if you disagree with the statement, then write the letter D. Okay? It's that simple. A or D. Let me give you an example. Let's look at number 1. Number 1, I am usually on time for classes and appointments. So if you're working, obviously you don't have classes, then let's talk about meetings or deadlines or appointments with customers or with internal customers or with your bosses or supervisors. I'm usually on time for classes. A, if you're regularly on time, maybe Izumi would be regularly on time, so she would write A. But if you tend to be late, then write D. Okay, that's for number 1. Again, if you don't have a pen or a paper, you could just use your phone for this in the notes section. Okay. Number 2, I always give time to study for exams. A would be I'm always prepared for my exams. I'm always, studying in advance. Like I'm always ready. I never cram and I never wing it. Like I'm always ready for my exams. A, agree. D, disagree. Number 3, I allocate some time to study or read my textbook, even if I do not have an exam to prepare for. Wow. Wow. I wish we were all like this, right? Even if there's no exams, I still study for it. I always still prepare for it. Wonderful. A, agree. D, disagree. Number 4, I regularly join social activities or events, even though I have some studying or work to do. Because, it's my friend's birthday party, or, Christmas is coming up. So I don't want to miss the parties or the company events that go with it, even if I have deadlines or work to do. Okay, so A, if you agree, D, if you disagree with the statement. Number 5, I usually cram for exams. I usually wing it when it comes to exams. And if you're working and you don't have exams, you might think, well, I don't really prepare for my meetings. I just go in the meetings and, just wing it and see what happens when I get there. I don't normally get ready, prepare some documents beforehand. Okay. Let's write A for agree and D for disagree. Then number 6, I usually feel prepared on the day of the exams. So if it's an exam, then when on the day itself, I'm not worried. I'm not stressed at all because I feel I prepared enough. Or if you're working, then it would be your meetings, for example, when I present to a customer, or when I talk to my supervisors, or when I present during town hall meetings, for example, I'm ready. I don't feel stressed. A for agree and D for disagree. Number 7, I find it really hard to complete tasks and projects on time. I tend to be stressed and rushing and just completing things at the last minute or just before submission. A for agree, D for disagree. Number 8, I don't really feel burned out when working on my tasks. Working on my tasks feel such a joy, such a pleasure to do. I don't feel stressed about it. I don't feel burned out like, oh, I need a drink after this. Nope, not at all. I don't feel that way. Agree or disagree? I'm not going to check this, by the way. You're going to check this on your own, so just be honest, okay? A for agree, D for disagree. Number 8, I tend to write or list things down, the things that I need to do. So I usually have like what we call a to-do list. I usually do that. I write things down. What are the things I need to do today, tomorrow, the next day? So I tend to write things down. Or if you have gadgets, then you would type things down. A agree, D disagree. Number 10, I usually have enough time to finish what I need to do, but I still find it hard to finish everything on time. I mean, I had an entire month to prepare for the exam, but for some reason, I'm still panicking by the time I take the exam. Or for some reason, I'm hurrying to complete my task just before the deadline, even if I had a long time to prepare for it. A, agree, D, disagree. Number 11, I don't really feel pressured or stressed to get things done. I just get it done for some reason. I don't feel stressed or pressured about it. I'm able to accomplish them quickly. A, agree, D, disagree. And finally, number 12, I seriously get disrupted when there are unplanned activities. And I know some people who tend to be a bit obsessive compulsive about their schedules or their plans, and they don't like interruptions or things getting disrupted as, you know, as they happen. So A, agree, I don't like it to get messed up, or D, disagree. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting some feedback now with audio. Okay, thank you. Okay, there you go. So for those of you who wrote letter A, which means agree, for numbers 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 9, and 11. If you put letter A for 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 6, 8, 9, and 11, give yourself 1 point for each of these numbers. Put number 1 beside these numbers if your answer was A, okay? And if your answer was D, put 0 points, 0 points beside the number. That easy, okay? Now, for the rest of the numbers, if you disagreed with numbers 4, 5, 7, 10, and 12, put 1 point beside those numbers if you disagreed with those statements. And if you agreed with those statements, again, put 0, 0 beside those numbers. Now, when you're done putting points beside number 1 to 12, tally your points. How many points do you have in total? How many points do you have in total? Please tally them. Now, I'm curious to see. Adobe, maybe you could share to me how many points you have in total based on your tally.
Actually, my internet is really, really bad, so I couldn't get all your questions.
Oh, okay. No worries, no worries. but did you get some of them at least?
Yeah, I got 1 to 10.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine. So between 1 to 10, from numbers 1 to 10, how many points did you have?
Um, 3 points.
3 points, that's fine. Okay. Does anyone have higher than 3 points?
Yes, I can see here Osmund, one saying 7 out of 12, another one 4 out of 12. Anyone else? Can you type? Or
7 out of 12, not bad.
another
4 out
one
of 12.
7. I got 7 as well.
Oh, nice, Georgia.
I had a few doubts about one, but I was in between. But yeah, 5 out of 12. I see another 5. So and I have one saying 11 out of 12. But
wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
11
amazing.
out of 12.
Well,
Yeah.
let me tell you guys that if you scored between 9 and 12 points, you're a really good time manager. It's great. It's great. Happy for you. Good for you. And if you scored between 5 and 8, you're doing some things right. Definitely, you're doing some things right. And if you scored between 1 and 4, and I heard some of us got 3, some of us got 4, that's fine. You could still work on your skills. Again, I'm trying to keep things positive here. Definitely there's room for improvement. Why not? And we'll try to work on them. At least we can assess the areas that we tend to struggle with, So thank you for participating in this very simple self-assessment. This is definitely not a definitive guide to how well you manage your time. Of course, it's a very simplistic way to assess our own time management skills, but I think it's good to sort of reflect and look at the areas where we struggle with and areas where we tend to excel. So time management, when we talk about time management, there tends to be a story that we probably have heard of before, and it's called The Jar of Life. If you haven't heard this title, maybe some of you know this story as Rocks, Pebbles, and Sand. And in case you haven't heard this story, well, I'm going to tell this story to you now. And for those of you who have heard this story, allow me to give a quick refresher for you what this story is all about. Okay? So once upon a time, there was a wise philosophy teacher, and he silently stood before his philosophy class. And on the table in front of him, he placed a large glass mason jar, similar to what you see on screen. And so, in front of his students, he started to fill up this jar with golf balls. And when he filled up the jar with golf balls, it reached to the top and the golf balls couldn't fit anymore. He asked his students, "Is it full?" Obviously, his students replied, "Yes, the jar is full of golf balls." And there was definitely no more room to fit more golf balls in. Okay, that's fine. But then the professor turned back to his table and he picked up a box of small pebbles. And then he poured that box of pebbles into the jar of golf balls. He shook the jar so that the pebbles could fill the space around the golf balls. And now he asked his class again, "Is the jar full now?" And obviously, this time the students look at each other and said, yeah, now it's full. Earlier it wasn't, but now it's full. Okay, good. But the professor turned his back and got another box. But this time that box was filled with sand. And what did he do? He poured the sand in between the pebbles and the balls, and once again shook the jar to make sure the sand would find the spaces around the pebbles and the golf balls. And now he raised up the jar and asked, "Now is the jar full?" And of course, the students agreed again, this time, that it was full. However, the professor said, "Okay, the jar is full." he got his cup of coffee and he poured his cup of coffee into the jar. And the students this time laughed as the coffee filled still the remaining spaces between the golf balls, the pebbles, and the sand. The professor went on to explain that this example that he just did in front of the students represents everything we have in our lives, right? The jar represents, obviously, the time that we have on earth, right? Alternatively, it can represent your time in a day, your time in a week, your time in a month, your time in a year. It has a set size and a limited capacity, and you only get one jar. So the professor said, look after it wisely and fill it well. The golf balls represent the most important things in your life. It includes things like your health, your family, your friends, your passions, self-care. These are the big things, the really important things that money cannot buy. If everything else was lost, like the sand, the pebbles, and only the golf balls remained, well, your life would still have meaning. And you must make these things a priority in your life. The pebbles represent something else. They represent things in your life that matter and are necessary, but you could live without them as well. They may come and go throughout your life, and they're not really that essential to your overall well-being. There's small things like your job, your house, your car, material possessions, your phone, your hobbies. They're still important, they're important tasks. It gives your life meaning, but it's not critical for you to have a meaningful life. That's what the professor said. The sand represents the small stuff, the little things, the fairly unimportant, insignificant things we have in life. It wouldn't be missed if they were cut out, or if we didn't have enough time left in our day for them, we wouldn't miss them. These are things like watching television, social media, for example, overthinking or pointless worrying. These can be slotted into the empty spaces in our day. And the coffee, according to the professor, well, no matter how full our day is, no matter how many things we need to accomplish in a day, we can always make time to have a glass of wine or a cup of coffee with a friend. And that goes the story of the philosophy teacher called the jar of life. But the professor wasn't done, because he got the entire filled jar and he poured the entire contents out. He poured it all out. Now the jar was empty again, but this time he filled that entire jar with sand, completely with sand. And after he filled it with sand, he got some golf balls and tried to put the golf balls in. Obviously, he couldn't. The golf balls couldn't fit into the spaces between the sand because the jar was completely full. So the flip side, he said, instead of putting golf balls in, if you spend all your time on the small and insignificant things, you will notice that you will soon run out of time for the things that are truly important. The significant, major things in our lives don't anymore have space in our day because we chose to prioritize the sand over the golf balls. So if you don't know what your priorities are and you don't plan your day or plan your week or your month or your year, and we fill it with the wrong things first, at the end of the day, we go to bed unfulfilled, feeling that, oh my gosh, I was not able to accomplish the things I needed to do today. We're worrying on the big stuff because we did the small stuff and the insignificant things first. So what the professor is saying is, in order to have a more effective life, we should prioritize important things in our life and worry about the pebbles and the sand at a later time. I wonder if there's anyone who has heard this story just now for the first time. Could you please let yourself be known by chat or by a reaction button or just by unmuting yourself and just telling me, if this is the first time you've heard this story? Adobe, yes, go ahead. Someone else is raising their hand, Georgia, right?
Yes, it's Montserrat.
Yeah, Montserrat, maybe. I haven't heard
Zina?
from Montserrat. Could we hear from Montserrat? Sorry.
And Alessia.
Go ahead, Montserrat. This is the first time you've heard this story. What was your reaction when I was telling this story?
Well, yeah, this is the first time I've heard it, and it was impressive. It was kind of funny, but I mean, he's so right.
Thanks for that. It's good that you feel that way, and sometimes we don't realize that time, which is like the jar, is not something we could really manage. That's why this webinar, I think the title is a little bit funny. When we talk about time management, I think one of the things we also need to realize is there's 24 hours in a day. We cannot make it 25 even if we wanted to. It's a fixed amount of time we all share in a day. So in effect, we're not trying to manage our time because we cannot manage the clock. We cannot stop time. We cannot manage time. So I'd like to change the title of this topic today, not from time management to life management. That's what we have control over. Not the time, because we can't change that, but we have control over how we choose to live our lives, what we choose to fill our time with. Fill it with more insignificant stuff? Surely you don't have space for the bigger stuff. But if we try to do a balance of these things, then obviously that would be better. Anyone here that did not raise their hand? Maybe Georgia, help me, please. Did someone who did not raise their hand, that means they've heard this story before? I just want to hear their reaction as well.
I cannot see any messages, but those who did not, if I remember correctly, was Anastasia, Faye, if I'm not wrong, Julia.
Anastasia or Faye or Julia, could you please share just your insights? You've heard the story before. What went through your mind listening to this story again, knowing that this is a time management topic? Any of you, Anastasia, Faye, or Julia, please?
I can add a comment here. I've seen a video of it, the professor in the class, I remember, but I don't recall it correctly or fully. After I heard this session and how you explained it, I think listening it from another person and a different perspective and more in details, I learned more. And I think I got inspired more about how to manage life, not time, which I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. It was very nice and very insightful.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Zina, right? Or Zina, sorry.
Zina.
Zina, thank you, Zina. Thank you so much for that insight as well. It's good to know that, a bit of refresher doesn't hurt, and a bit of, application into what we're talking about today makes it become more relevant and real for you. So thank you for sharing, Zina.
Thank you.
I have one
Yeah, go
comment
ahead.
here from Izumi Osmund.
Go ahead.
Izumi saying that she heard the story already, but never related it with time life management. And she says that she thinks when I read it, it was more related to the people of our lives. Does this make sense to you? I don't know if Izumi wants to provide.
I think definitely. I think Izumi, please correct me if I'm wrong. What you're trying to say is the people that we spend time with as well. Who do you relate with? Do you surround yourself with toxic people, for example, or people who bring negativity to your life or bring you down? Or do you surround yourself and spend more time with the people who add value in your life? Those are the golf balls in your life versus the ones that drain the energy out of you. I think that's where Izumi is coming from. And again, Izumi, correct me if I misunderstand what you were trying to say. But yes, you're right. We can relate it with the people as well. Georgia, any comments there?
1 second, reading through. Yes, she's saying that she appreciates the quality moments with the closest people.
There you go.
And Adalbi here says, it reminds me of the book I was reading this morning, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. I don't know that book.
I'm not familiar with that book as well, but let me just write it down. That sounds interesting. Did you say Eat the Frog?
Yeah, I don't know the book.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Adobe. Very interesting. And I love how something that you read this morning you were able to connect it with what we're talking about today. I love it. So you might be wondering now.
It's a very interesting book.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sorry to cut you short. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Yes, it's a very interesting book by Brian Tracy, and it's about time management and productivity. So it's actually teaches us to do the hardest tasks first and to prioritize on the most important tasks. So because in 24 hours we have a lot to do, but we can only do what we have to do. So therefore, we just have to choose the most important tasks and then make sure we finish it and stay disciplined. So it's a very interesting book.
I love it. Thank you so much. And I love the fact that you brought up a book that you just recently read, because one of the things that this jar of life story tells us is about prioritizing, choosing what you put into your jar. The jar is empty. We have the same 24 hours in a day. We make the decision. It's our choices that matter, choices to put inside. So talking about how we can prioritize our life, I'd also like to share with you another book this time. And this might be a more familiar book to everyone in the room today. And that book is by Stephen Covey, American educator and businessman who wrote the popular book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Obviously, if maybe you've read this book and maybe you haven't, but regardless, I'm sure you've heard of it at least or know snippets about this book. And one of the things that this gentleman talks about is called the Covey time management matrix. And this is one of the things that we can use as a framework, to prioritize our time and the tasks that we need to do to become more efficient and productive in a day. So the time management matrix basically uses a 4-quadrant system. So a quadrant basically is if you draw a straight line on a piece of paper that you have, a vertical line, and of course a horizontal line. There you have 4 parts, and that is now a quadrant. On the top part, he labels this as urgent. First column is urgent, and the second one is not urgent. And for the rows, for the other axis, we label this as important, and right below that, it's not important. So you got urgent, not urgent, important, not important. So basically, this model uses this 4-quadrant system to help you categorize your tasks, your responsibilities based on urgency and importance. So when we say urgency, we're talking about time-bound things that have time limits. It requires immediate action. That's what urgency means. And importance. Importance meaning giving significance or value towards your goals. Okay, so that's what importance is. The first quadrant, the one in color red, as you can see, are things that are urgent and important. Things that are urgent and important. The next quadrant would be things that are not urgent but still important. Then the third quadrant would be urgent but not important. And obviously the fourth quadrant, the one in blue, would be not urgent and not important, as you can see from the grid over there, right? So let's define each quadrant in a clearer manner. In quadrant one, the one in red, we can list down the responsibilities or the tasks that we have, for example, that are critical to achieving the goals that we've set in our day, in our week, in our month, in our lives. Okay? But the thing is, these things could tend to be stressors as well. Stressors. What are stressors? Things that make us stress because there's a time element related to it. There's a deadline to it. Like, I'll give you a simple exam. I'll give you a simple example, and that is an exam or a deadline for a paper that we need to submit. There's a time element. So, of course, it's important that we pass the exam or we take the exam. It's important that we submit the report, for example, at work. And it's important that we do it on time. So, it's urgent and important. And that's why it's obviously in that quadrant. So things that have time-sensitive goals, things that, require immediate attention are all in that first quadrant. Now, what is in the second quadrant? The second quadrant, as you can see, the one in yellow, are things that are important. They're really important, but they're not urgent. In other words, they may have a deadline, but the deadline isn't until later, like a month from now or 6 months from now. There's a deadline still, but the deadline isn't like tomorrow or today. So it's not urgent, but it's still important to accomplish. And these tends to be things that require some planning on our part, some regular things that we do that would add up eventually to reach our goals. A simple example of this would be your health goals. Say, for example, in the summer, you plan to go on a beach holiday and you want to prepare your bikini ready body. Okay. It's important because, of course, it is health related. Aside from being beauty related, it is health related, and health is important after all. But, the beach holiday isn't until the end of summer. There's still time to get ready for that. So we put exercise, we put diet, for example, in this quadrant. We don't have to put it in the first quadrant. It's not urgent, but it's important, but it's not urgent that I lose 10 pounds by tomorrow, that I lose how many inches off my waistline by tomorrow. You see, I still have a few months to get there. But if we put it in the second quadrant, these are things that we do on a regular basis, consistently, to achieve a long-term goal. So that's what the second quadrant is for. Now, what about the third quadrant, the one in green? They're urgent, but they're not important. Things like, phone notification. My phone rings. I get distracted. I immediately look at it. That happens to us, right? We're studying, my phone dings, and then suddenly my attention is now focused on the phone. It's urgent, but wait, is that important? It's urgent because, of course, it alarmed, but is that important? So it's urgent, but it's not important. So most phone notifications are in quadrant 3. Things also that are often pleasant to do are in quadrant 3, but they're time consuming. What are things that are pleasant to do? Going out with friends. Obviously it's urgent. Why is it urgent? Because there's a time. Like my friend has a party, in her apartment tonight. So there's a time, set for that. So there's a sense of urgency that it's going to be tonight. It can't be 6 months from now. It's tonight. I have to go tonight. But is it important to socialize in that party tonight? Let's think about it also. We can put it in that quadrant. And finally, the quadrant 4, which is the one in blue, these are things that are not urgent and they're not important as well. and they can be removed completely or reduced. Okay, it's important to identify these things so you can classify them generally as the lowest priority. These activities tend to be not stressful at all. We enjoy doing them. In other words, these are activities that any activity that you do to procrastinate, to kill time or to waste time. That's where you put quadrant 4, things in quadrant 4. Now, what should you do in each quadrant? Let's take a look at the first quadrant. The first quadrant, we need to manage. Why do we need to manage them? Because you don't want everything to be urgent and important in your life. There's a very famous saying, and I'd like you to take this to heart. It's one of my favorite sayings. Stress is an ignorant state. It's an ignorant state. Stress in an ignorant state. It believes that everything is an emergency. That's what stress is. So if you're feeling stressed, remind yourself, wait a minute. Is the thing that's stressing me out, is that an emergency? Is that a matter of life and death? If it's not, chill. Okay? Obviously, there are some things that stress us. Yes, and stress is normal human reaction, but we can manage our stress by looking at this quadrant and saying, is it important? Yes. Is it urgent? Maybe not really. I can move that aside. Is it urgent? Yes, but is it really that important? Yeah, you know what? It's less important than the other things that I need to do. I can move that down there, right? So stress is an ignorant state. It believes everything is an emergency. So manage the stress. Don't let stress manage you. Now, what do we do in the second quadrant? The one in yellow, what do we do? Focus. Like I said, an example of this is something that we do habitually, regularly to reach a long-term goal. Exercise, for example, consistently. Focus. Now, what about the next point here? The next point, third quadrant, it's urgent but not important. What do we do with them? Avoid. Phone notifications, social media, for example, avoid. Social activities and events, things can be avoided. And by the way, you can always say no. Someone invites you to a party, you can always say no. And some people tend to say, oh, but then I don't want to be rude by saying no. It's not rude. You're being rude to yourself. Okay, you're doing yourself a disservice by saying yes to everything. Sometimes you can say no, and there's a way of saying it, not rudely, but in a polite manner, of making an excuse, for example, to decline, for example. Remember to manage your time, yourself, and don't get dragged into everything that's happening around you. So avoid. And finally, what do we do with the last one? Some people say remove. No, I don't recommend to remove it at all. I just recommend to limit things that are not important and not urgent. It's okay. Go ahead and do them by all means, but limit them. And when we talk about limiting, I'll introduce another concept very quickly here. And some people call this the Pomodoro technique. And basically what it says is time yourself for the things that you need to focus on and time yourself at the same time for the things that are not urgent and not important. And so this follows the 25-5 rule. 25 minutes, for example, okay, say for example, I have an exam tomorrow and I really need to go through an entire book. And I don't have time to go through the entire book. And I can't read this book for 3 hours straight. I'll go crazy. So what you do, set your timer 25 minutes. And your phone is on airplane mode. You're in a private room, no distractions. Focus, 25 minutes, go. 25 minutes, study, make notes, practice, review. But after 25 minutes, your alarm rings, stop. Whatever you're doing, stop doing it. Don't extend. Stand up, go around, watch, I don't know, social media, YouTube, Facebook, eat something, jog, look at the trees, do whatever you want, but anything but study for 5 minutes. But alarm yourself for that 5 minutes. That's how you limit yourself. After 5 minutes, when that break is over, get back to the 25-minute timer again. So it's 25, 5, 25, 5. Do that for 4 times over. That's a Pomodoro technique. That's what some people suggest. But again, everything I'm giving you right now are recommendations. At the end of the day, find out what works for you, because different things work for different people. Okay? So let's take a look at this now. And I'd like to ask you guys, where do you think I should put this? Health emergencies. Where do I put that? Anyone? Georgia, help me. Why don't you call on someone?
Let's see. Why don't you just type? Just type, guys. I don't want to call. Yeah. Manage. I have, response. Manage.
That's right.
Another
Yes,
one,
we
three,
manage. Very good. That's in the
four.
first quadrant.
Let's now in. Yeah.
Let's
good.
take a look at the next one. Phone notifications. Ding, 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 ding.
Put on mute and leave it there always. Avoid. They say avoid.
Avoid. Yes, yes. It's really distracting. It just breaks our train of thought often. Yeah.
It is. It is. And it's causing a lot of stress as well at the same time.
Yeah, and because you end up wasting time, and then you're like, oh, I don't have enough time for the more important things anymore.
Yeah, and since we are saying this, Osmund, while you were talking about before, you gave an example with social media and posts and, navigating through Instagram. There is this so-called FOMO, fear of missing out.
Oh,
and I know,
so true.
There is a lot of, and I've asked them here, anyone here feels the so-called fear of missing out? And I had 2 thumbs up, which means that, and it gets a lot in nowadays because of the social media, and there's a lot of research going on about this FOMO thing.
Yeah,
and there are a few things, I don't know if you're aware, that they can do to, overcome this FOMO thing. And I know as we are younger, we tend to have it more intensively, influencing our state of mind, our well-being, our thoughts, our,
I completely agree. Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Georgia. I mean, the fear of missing out. And that's why I'm like, don't remove the things that are not important and not urgent. Don't just remove them drastically, because it's not natural. This is the new reality that we have now. I'm not saying delete your Facebook account, delete your Instagram account. No, but just manage the time, just limit that time. And that way we don't suddenly get pushed into a corner of not having enough time to do the things that really matter the most. So thanks for sharing that. What about this one? Life drama.
Life drama. So what do you say about life drama? Let me check.
Yeah, like gossip and somebody's breakup and
Definitely avoid it. Definitely.
Avoid it or limit it, depends, I guess, how close you are to the person. If they're a celebrity or your best friend, those are varying degrees. So avoid or limit, definitely. Thank you. What about self-improvement? Self-improvement. Like someone said, they're learning German now. They're learning German language. Wonderful. That's upskilling, like learning how to drive a car, how to cook, how to speak another language, or exercising. Researching about something. Where do we put this? Quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Do we manage, focus, avoid, or limit? Georgia, any chats there?
Sorry, I was chatting with a student here about FOMO, giving a tip. I have, about the last one, I hope it's the last one, I have 4 focus.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. We focus on, very good. Yes, self-improvement, definitely. Escape activities, like hiking up in the mountains, doing something that's just brainless, basically. Watching a movie, for example, like a comedy, just not using our brains. Yes, go ahead, Georgia.
Limit, I have a response here.
Yep, limit. It's fine to do that. It's totally fine to give yourselves a break. But I guess not just give yourself a break 24 hours a day. Okay, what about this? And this is crucial. Things that are related to preparation, things that are related to planning, and things that are related to prevention. It could be for an exam, it could be for a calamity, it could be for a business meeting. Where do we put this?
I have manage. Three responses.
Interesting. Manage would be things that are urgent and important, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I have another one saying focus now.
Focus. Yeah. That's what we need to do. Focus, exactly. Not manage, because the fact that you have time to prepare, the fact that you have time to plan and time to prevent risks from happening, that means the sense of urgency is not yet close. You still have time to do it. So those are things that you can add on your weekly agenda, things that you do on a regular basis to prepare for it for the future, because the sense of urgency hasn't happened. They are important, but they're not urgent. Okay, and what about many popular activities? Watching concerts, things that you're, again, fear of missing out. Friends, social, your peers all want to do this. It's popular. Everybody wants to do this. So you have that fear of missing out. Where do you put it though? Quadrant 1, 2, 3, or 4, we put it in, we would say,
I have here limit, avoid.
Limit or avoid.
It's important to have some time for yourself.
Yes.
Another one says avoid.
Yes. Okay. Very good. Very good.
Limit or avoid.
And finally, and this is a bit tricky, what about the tasks that were originally from the second quadrant, which is not urgent but still important, but then they got postponed? You list it there in the second quadrant, but they got postponed. Where do we put it now? This is interesting, guys. Where do we put it now? Anyone? What do you think?
Focus. I have one focus here.
Yeah, originally they were in focus, originally. Okay.
Yes, but now,
but
as
you did not get to
said,
achieve it. Yeah, you didn't get to achieve it there. So where does it fall under now? It moves, right? They're not urgent because the deadline is still far away. You're working on it on a regular basis, but it got postponed. Again, we give you the example of exercise. Your beach body for the summer, right? You're supposed to exercise now. It's not urgent. It's important for your health.
This one is hard, they say, Osmund, because I have so many ambivalent answers. I have manage, I have limit. They say this one is hard.
No. But what happens is summer is now tomorrow. You're flying for your beach holiday tomorrow already, but you never got to diet and you never got to exercise to get your beach body ready. Now it's become urgent. So there's one of two things. We're now stressed about it. It's urgent now. It's important. But then sometimes it could be too late and we feel stressed about it. That's what tends to happen with things in this quadrant. In quadrant 2, a lot of people tend to pack so many things in that it's not achievable anymore. Okay, let's talk about this a little bit very quickly. How do you use the COVID time management matrix? List all the tasks that you need to complete. First of all, get a sheet of paper. Let me get a piece of paper here. Okay, you got a piece of paper. List all the tasks you need to complete, everything, but not for your life. Give it a time limit, something like 1 week, 1 month. What are the things you need to achieve within this week, for example? Everything you need to achieve within this week, list it down. And then the second thing you do, put deadlines. You have to set deadlines with each one. If there's no deadline, there's no pressure on your part to accomplish it. You need to set your own deadline. If it's not set by your teacher, not set by your boss, you set it yourself. If you don't set the deadline, it's not going to get done. Okay? Write that down. By this date, I should be able to do this already. I should have done this already by this date. After you set the deadline, Then you identify which one is the closest deadline, right? Then you know which one is the most urgent. But just because it's urgent, let's say three things are due tomorrow. Three things are due tomorrow. Organize those three things by importance. Out of the three things that are due tomorrow, which one is the most important? Then you prioritize. You prioritize, place now the tasks in the correct quadrant. Which one becomes urgent and important, and which one can wait? Which one are less important? Which one do I focus? Do I avoid? And do I limit? But after that week that you've done that, after 1 week that you've done that, assess, revisit everything. You need to do that because this is a trial and error thing. This is something that takes time to get used to. So you have to assess, what did I do wrong last week? Why did I not get to accomplish this task or this responsibility? So do some reevaluation, adjust your prioritization, reorganize your matrix so that you can make sure to put the meaningful tasks first always. Okay? Now,
And also,
go
Osmund,
ahead.
sorry for interrupting.
No, go
I
ahead.
was going to say, sometimes we do have this, if you go to the previous slide that you have open, that we have these tasks to do and that we can assign the deadlines. But sometimes we also have the everyday routine tasks that we need to do. So when you do this matrix, consider also that you need to consume time to do those tasks that you need to do every single day, like, I don't know, walking your dog, even a simple task 2 times a day, or taking a nap, sleeping, if that's important. So when you set your deadlines, consider the time frame also within a day when you set the deadlines. And I have here a response, Osmond, on the things you just said.
Please share.
They said that they always do a to-do list, but they never put deadlines. So this is a good tip. So maybe you can consider the routine tasks that we need to do every single day.
The reason why I recommend deadlines, because based on my personal experience as I started to do this myself, the one thing that I made a mistake on was really overestimating myself. Like I thought I had the power to do everything all at once. That was the major thing. And so I'm glad that you brought up the fact that sometimes as simple as, say, I don't know, making dinner, we would think that that's something that can be done in 5 minutes. But then we overestimate our ability and we end up wasting an hour in the kitchen, for example, and we don't realize, oh my God, it's been an hour, right? And I've wasted so much time already. So those are things that you need to be able to do. And that's why I recommend to reassess what you've done, because you need to be able to do it and try it out for yourself to figure out what works for you and to have a better estimation of how long it takes you to do certain things. Okay. So thank you, Georgia. And that's why deadlines are important. Because if you don't put the time, the limits that you set for yourself, they're just gonna be in the to-do list, and there's no pressure to complete them. There's no estimation on our part on how much time I can allot to them. So I'll move forward a bit now to scheduling, which is related to what we talked about, because aside from the quadrant, you have the quadrant, right? But I'm sure on a day-to-day basis, you're not looking at the quadrant. Okay, the quadrant just helps you prioritize what are the most important things in your life from a general basis. But on a regular basis, we're looking at our planner, we're looking at our schedule. So I recommend three schedules. The first one would be monthly, the next one is weekly, and the next one is daily. In other words, I want you to look at the macro level towards the micro level. And to me, this is really important. Monthly calendars should be things where you see things at a glance. And oftentimes we make weekly calendars or daily calendars. We don't see things from a distance, from a far distance. And it's important to see things from that perspective, something visible at a glance, because then you could see the congested periods. You could see, oh, why am I putting so many things in this week? I have so many things going on in this week. I need to spread it out. I should swap certain things to the week before or the week later. And you can only do that by looking at the monthly calendar at a glance from a farther perspective. And you can use your phone or gadgets for that. But weekly tasks are important. Georgia mentioned the things that we do on a regular basis, like walking your dog, making dinner, for example, exercise. These are weekly tasks that sometimes we don't put in our to-do list, but you need to. And you can see that in your weekly tasks, that this is my gym time, this is my yoga time, this is my family time. It's plotted in your weekly tasks. Okay, and you could see how much time you're allotting on a weekly basis and what your free times would be. Weekly tasks can help you because it sorts of gives you a template for a typical week. Again, digital, you could go digital or you could do manual, it's up to you. But to-do lists are also important because I just love checking things that I've done, and it gives you such a mental sense of satisfaction that task one crossed off the list. And it's such a great satisfaction that I highly recommend that you do. Okay? Now, there are a few common mistakes, and I'll just very briefly, because I know I'm running out of time, but very briefly, I'll talk about the common mistakes with this matrix that I've shared. First mistake, everything urgent is important. No. Just because tomorrow's the deadline doesn't mean that it's something that is also important. So again, earlier I said stress is an ignorant state. It believes everything is an emergency. This is the flip side, right? That everything that is urgent is important. No, it is not. Okay? Will this thing matter a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? Will what I'm stressing about now matter later? If the answer for that is no, then it probably is urgent, but it's not that important. Another mistake people do, as I mentioned earlier, is overloading quadrant two. Because, quadrant two focus, things we do on a regular basis, is really what we call the sweet spot of productivity. We feel so productive. I've exercised today. I walked my dog today. I made dinner today. I accomplished my to-do list. I feel so great today. Yes, and we overload a lot of things in quadrant two. But let's remember, the things that we do, it's not about checking things off a list only because that's quantity, but it's about quality also. Okay, just because you did it and you've checked that off your list doesn't give you the same sense of satisfaction as having done it well. So let's focus also on quality instead of quantity. Another mistake people make is thinking, like I said, that quadrant four is useless. Don't remove that. You need your break for your brain. You need a break for your mental health, emotional health. You need those breaks. So do not beat yourself up for relaxing, for treating yourself. Don't beat yourself up. You're human. You need that. Just keep it in check. Too much of that might stress you out in the long run. Okay? And the final mistake people make is not revisiting and readjusting. Things in our matrix need to be adjusted on a regular basis to keep things relevant because your priorities may shift from one month to the next month. I'd like to sort of jump now. Are there any questions or clarifications at this point? Yes, go ahead if you have one.
Okay, thank you so much for this session. My question is, how do we achieve our daily task? Do you advise we look at it from the daily side of things or from the monthly side of things? Like, for example, if I say, okay, this is a project I have to accomplish within 3 months, for example, will you advise me to stick to the 3 month plan, or will you advise me to break things down in a daily manner or daily task that I need to do for me to achieve the big picture? So how do I combine the big picture and the daily tasks together so that I still don't forget my
Right,
big picture?
right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good question. Thanks for asking it, Adobe. So basically, if you have, say, for example, 3 months, let's use your example. You have a big project coming up in 3 months. A mistake a lot of people make is thinking, I still have 3 months. 3 months is a long time. That's what a lot of people tend to do, and they wait till that last minute to do it. In fact, what you need to do is work backwards. So from the 3 month deadline, you break down that task into what we call digestible chunks. Okay, things that can be digested. Just like if you have a plate full of food, you cannot eat the entire plate of food in one gulp. You need to take smaller bites. Those smaller bites must be divided within the 3 months. For example, preparation, research. How much research, how much time do you need to allocate in your research for that project? Okay, I'm going to allocate, say, 1 week. So you have 1 week for that. And then what about putting things together, like collecting the surveys and the research? I'm going to allocate another week for that. Then preparing my presentation, I'm going to allocate another week for that. You work backwards. But always remember, if the deadline is 3 months, make your own deadline 2.5 months. Why? That way you still have wiggle room in case of emergencies. After 2.5 months, then you reassess. Again, try it out, see if it works for you. If it's something that doesn't work for you, readjust, revisit, and reassess your matrix and your schedules. So do not just look at the to-do list, but do not also just look at the macro level, the 3 month level. Look at both. Use those two information to your advantage. I hope I've answered your question, Adobe. Any other questions? Anyone? Because I'd also like to share one more thing, if you'd allow me, Xavier.
Sure.
Last one. A lot of people look at the story of the Jar of Life, and they 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 follow this story blindly. That's what I notice, and that means that they just focus on the golf balls. They focus on doing just the major tasks, and they ignore completely the smaller tasks, lesser, the less significant ones. And this is completely wrong. That's not what the story is about. Just like the quadrant, Covey's quadrant. I'll do everything in quadrant one, in the manage, in the urgent and important. That's the most important priority. I'll forget about everything else. All these other things will eventually pile up. And when they pile up, they'll eventually become urgent as well. They'll eventually swallow you and stress you out. So the best way to apply this story into our time management skills is not to do all the big things first and forget about the small things, but rather to sort of do a little bit of mix. I do the big things first, I'll prioritize that, but not all the big things. Maybe one major big thing, and some smaller pebbles, some sand here, some coffee as well into the mix, and then big thing again, and then some pebbles, some sand, and some coffee. Quadrant one first, of course, because it's urgent and important, but you can't just focus on quadrant one all the time. You got to do a bit of quadrant two into the mix, a bit of quadrant four into the mix, a bit of quadrant three into the mix, and that way we get something more balanced. Finally, as we talk about time management, and I know nobody has asked this question, but I always get asked this question is, how do I achieve work-life balance? And my simple answer, and perhaps surprising answer to that, is you don't. There's no such thing as work-life balance. It's either you work or you do the life part. You pick. at the end of the day, it's all about prioritizing. That's what I'm saying. When when you're at work, focus on work. And when you're out of work, enjoy life. That's what work life balance is. It doesn't mean that you juggle both of them at the same time, because that doesn't work. When you're at work, you concentrate. When you're out of work, don't think of work. Think of yourself, self care. I hope through this quick workshop, I was able to not only inspire, but give you some tips and strategies on how we can better manage our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Osmund. This is a clear example that this is a very interesting topic for everybody, right? It gains a lot of interest from our audience. So congratulations for the topic. Osmund, the only thing that I would say is that, yeah, I agree with all you said, but I would say also that at the end of the day, everything is rated with personal alignment too, you know, and try to understand what is important for you,
Mhm. That's
you
what
know,
prioritizing is.
and yeah, you're right. But prioritizing is when you already know it. I
Mhm.
mean, stopping and understanding yourself is what
Mhm.
I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
Okay. So life, not time management, as you said, life
Mhm.
management
Mhm.
starts kind of understanding yourself,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
And feeling who you are, your capabilities, your firsts, your weaknesses. I want to say that because here in GBSB Global in Career Services, we also have coaches to help you guys in this particular part. Okay? Alignment, personal alignment, because life management starts from there, I would say. Okay? So we have a group of people that could help you in this starting point. Okay? And then it goes all these techniques and methodologies that Osmond tell you in a very clear way, right? This is the only thing that I would like to add, as many of you allow
Thank
me.
you. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
And then maybe I have a question for you that it's about technology. Do you
Hmm.
use any tool in
Oh,
order
there's.
to, because
Hmm.
there is Notion, there is this kind of project management tools that helps you to define tasks, prioritize, put deadlines. You know, we in career services, we work very much in I mean, the core team, we work through Notion in order to be aligned with all the priorities and
Hmm.
deadlines and everything. Do you use any specific kind of technology or tool for time management?
There are a lot of obviously there's a lot of technology available in our hands right now. A lot of them are free, and a lot of them also are paid. It again completely goes back to what you are used to, what you prefer, your learning style, your working style. Like Xavier was saying earlier, each person is different and they have their own assessments, and these technology, don't feel bad if you try a technology that doesn't work for you, because again, we're all built differently. The easiest and the most basic technology that we all have in our hands is a pen and paper. That's the most basic technology that we can use at first. Try it out. Start there. Start somewhere. Then, if you're talking about digital technology, obviously all our gadgets, all our phones have their own calendars, and it's become so useful because they you can link them with your other apps, and you can
Exactly.
have reminders, you can have timers, you can add notes, and you can even link certain links or files to them. And you could also share them with certain groups. Like if you're working with, let's say for project management, and you're working with a team, for example, your calendars could be shared with other people's calendars, so you can coincide, plans and meetings and so on and so forth. But there are also apps that you can download, and they're specifically designed for time management. For example, a famous new app now that's like the in thing is called Rise, Rize. And the reason why this is pretty in right now is it uses AI. It uses artificial intelligence to track, sort of like if you put a task there, it tracks how long you tend to do the task, and it adjusts it for you as you are doing it, and if you're able to accomplish it within that time. So the next time you do a similar task, then it would recommend a shorter period or a longer period. So it uses AI as well. And there are other tasks out there that other apps, out there that also links with other apps on your phone that could make your life so much easier. But I know that a lot of people may not necessarily be very technologically attuned, and they might not like to clog their gadgets with too many of these things. So it's completely up to you. Try it out. If you like it, there's always a free trial month. You can try it out. If it doesn't work, then try something else. There's also another app. I forget the name. Something like Forest, I believe. That's like a gamified version of a time management tracker. And what it does is it makes your tasks, well, just like, have you heard of Duolingo? It gamifies language learning. This sort of gamifies your schedule. So if you're able to accomplish the task within the time that you set it, then you get certain points for that. And so there are some challenges to do within a certain period. So again, try
Sorry
it
for
out.
interrupting,
Yeah, go
Osmund.
ahead.
I have two students who want to
Ask
have two
questions?
questions.
Mhm.
Before I go to the questions, just want to say that I use pen and paper, but I also use Outlook, especially there is a task notes, and also you can set it up in the calendar, in your calendar, so you get notified. For example, need to send an email by this day, need to see if this is done by that day, and so on and so forth. But anyway, let me go to the students. I don't know if this is helpful, because most of our students use Outlook if they want to use the application that is free for them through this the Outlook services app. Now, one question that I have from a student is, when is the best time to do daily tasks? At the start of the day or at the end of the previous day? That's again based on,
If you're a morning person, then do it at the start of the day. If you're an evening person, do it at night. I mean, try it out. What works for you? It's different for every person. Some people say it's best to start your day with a heavy breakfast. Others tend to disagree. Some people start their day with a cup of coffee, and I don't want to judge, because it depends on what works for you. At the end of the day, what's important is you get it done.
Yeah. So either way, Faye, just to respond, it's totally up to you. You can start with your list, checking your previous day and see if you have done what you've done.
What I would say, though, thank you, Georgia, but what I would say, though, is not so much, like I said, it's not a matter of quantity. It's not just checking the tasks off your list, but it's also about quality.
Yeah.
So if you're doing the task, but you're not doing it with heart, and you're not doing it with a sound mind, for example, then those tasks would be done but not done well. So that's something that you would consider. When are you able to do those tasks better? Early morning, at night? It's up to you.
That's great. Yeah. And I have another question from Adobe. Using the jar of life, as you just described, you said we should do a mix of pebbles, sands, etc. Is there a particular order? Because she's saying that she's an evening person, but it makes her more unproductive in the morning because she sleeps late. Okay. So it's again more or less what you, go on, Osmond.
Well, the idea is, if it's urgent and important, right? These are basically the golf balls, the big things in our life, the most important things in our life, right? So obviously we start with those big things. But sometimes these big things require a lot of mental focus, physical agility, emotional readiness, right? Let's give an example. Say, for example, an exam, since most of you guys here are students, you have a big exam coming up. Obviously, that's tomorrow. That's urgent. And it's really important that you pass this exam or do well in this exam. Okay, urgent and important. That's a golf ball. That's important. You should do that. But to study for that exam because it's not your favorite subject and you're terrible at this subject. So it needs a lot of mental focus. It needs a lot of, I guess, physical endurance, depending on what the subject is. And of course, emotional readiness as well, like, to be able to fully commit to the studying process. Okay. What some people tend to do is they do a small task, a more insignificant task that inspires them or that sort of makes their brain move before studying. And you know what's a good friend of mine, not me, I wish it was me, but not me. A good friend of mine, you know what she does? She plays the piano. Before she studies, she just plays and plays the piano. She's a piano player, so she loves music. She plays the piano, she plays classical piano. And as she plays that, it's sort of like gets her brain waves ready, gets her body ready to now tackle and accomplish the bigger, more important task that is about to come. So while, yes, that the golf ball was the priority, but sometimes we need to do the sand and the pebble in order to be ready to do the golf ball. So I hope that helped you, Adobe.
One more, and this will be the last as we're 1
Sure,
hour
go
and
ahead.
30
No
minutes.
worries.
Yeah. So one more from another student. What advice would you give to someone that is constantly changing time zones? In this case, this student works in East Coast US time zone, lives in Germany, but also lives in Costa Rica. So is all over the place. So yeah,
Georgia,
Montserrat,
as you know,
do you
I'm
wanna
exactly the
explain this? Do
same.
you wanna?
I'm exactly the same. I work in multiple time zones, Georgia. As you would know, I
Yeah.
from Asia to the United States and to Europe. So I have 3 time zones that I look at depending on the time of day or the day of the week. And admittedly, in the beginning, it was a bit of a struggle, admittedly, definitely, because what got me confused is when do I schedule my sleep?
Exactly.
But actually, over time, with the use of technology, and Outlook has this too. You mentioned Outlook earlier. You need to plot the time zone of that activity or that event, and it will automatically compute for you in the time zone that you're located. So it would tell you that, and that helps a lot. But definitely, it's really about it takes a bit more work, a bit more planning, and oh my gosh, not to mention daylight savings time, then you have to change again.
Yeah.
Don't even mention daylight savings times. Those are the worst because I have to change my whole yearly schedule because of that.
Yep. I exactly the same thing that I go through. It is possible, Montserrat. Don't worry, it is possible. But it's really just a matter of being, I guess, more alert and mindful about the time and setting up your gadgets to sort of sync with everything. Yeah. Good luck. Good luck. It's a bit of a challenge, I know.
Yeah, because I just started working last month in the US East Coast time zone, but I travel a lot to Germany. I'm here in Costa Rica, so it's just very overwhelming. So this month is just like adjusting, but thank you so much for your advice.
You're welcome.
All right, everyone. I'm afraid we cannot take any more questions. Maybe, Osmund, we can repeat this session because it was so it seems that just everyone enjoyed it and they have so many different questions. In any case, the recording will be ready for you. You can access it later on. We will post it also in the career portal. And Osmund, from my side, thank you so much for everything, for joining once again. And Xavier, want to say?
Just that, thank you all of you guys for being so proactive, participating and implicating yourself in this webinar. It's important having your feedback to choose the right topics, to organize the right webinars. Okay, so thank you very much for participating. Any idea that could be useful for you in terms of student life, alumni, whatever, let us know, please. We're gonna bring you the best ones as Osmund to tell you about it, okay? Thank you very much to all of you. And of course, thank you very much, Osmund, for your very nice webinar and time dedication.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, Julia. Thank you. Nice to meet you.